First of all, you don't know me.
We're all about that high school drama girl, all about them high school queens. We'll take you for a ride in our comic girl, drama girl, cheering for the right team. Drama queens, smart girl, rough girl, fashion but you're tough girl. You could sit with us, girl. Drama queens, drama queens, drama queens, drama queens, drama queens.
Welcome back. We ended last week with champagne.
Hey, no.
We're kicking off this week with the rest of the bottle of champagne. So this is the recap of episode 1, the pilot. Air date September 23rd, 2003.
OTH day.
I didn't realize like jersey number 23 and then we aired
Wait
on
a
the
minute.
23rd.
I didn't
of
catch that
2003.
What? Whoa.
It feels like Illuminati.
Did
with
they
all
do that
these
on purpose? They must have done that on
numbers.
purpose. Maybe.
I don't think so. I think that was Michael Jordan's number.
Yeah.
Oh,
23 was Michael Jordan.
So the synopsis is, here we go. Nathan Scott is Tree Hill High's biggest basketball star, and he's dating Peyton, a cheerleader.
Ew.
And so much more. Nathan's half-brother Lucas joins the team and threatens to take both Nathan's spot in the lineup and his girl.
As if.
You're like, I was nobody's girl.
I belong to myself.
I was my own.
So grumpy.
I have to perhaps start in an unconventional place, but we've all just watched the pilot for the first time since 2003. And oh my God, Craig Sheffer is so hot.
I told you.
You always knew, Joy.
I knew. I could spot it from a mile away. I was like, I was in love with him.
I was late on the pickup with that because I was
Yeah.
like, well, he's playing one of the grown-ups.
I was like, he's a grown up, but you were like, no, ladies.
You had no time for the young dudes.
No, not at all. I had
were
no time or
wise.
patience.
You were wise beyond your years,
Yeah.
Joy.
Yeah, he was like muscly and his jeans were tight. Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about the denim
Yes. Oh, God.
in this first episode.
Wow, this baggy denim.
The cuts of jeans on the men.
Yeah, all of us in flares.
Also on us.
I loved my jeans. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Like,
Yeah.
I've been wearing flares consistently, whether they're cool or not cool.
Flares are pretty fabulous, but it's more the rise or the lack thereof that I'm
the
concerned with.
hip huggers.
They were just, were the zippers 2.5 inches long?
We're
3
gonna
inches
blame-
long?
Just above your pubic hair, like just barely.
On a good day. We blame Britney Spears for this. She really, she ruined it for the rest of us. But I also feel like because we were in Wilmington, North Carolina, our shopping options were not what they were in New York or Los Angeles. So we were dealing with like being 6 months behind any cool kid curve.
But I have to say, there's a part of that worked to our advantage because most people don't have access to it's, I mean, that's if you live in the city and that's a priority for you and that's fun and it's a great way to express yourself. But there are a lot of people who that's not a priority. And so I think there's a relatability in that as well.
Yeah, we looked like regular kids.
At the time, OC had come on the air.
Right.
Over the summer and had blown up, and it was all about rich kids, and so that was our competition.
But
and
that was a fantasy element, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why
They were so
we weren't.
fancy.
Yeah.
we were Gap, Old Navy,
Dillard's.
mall kids.
Yeah.
we were mall kids.
Yeah.
God bless that.
I
Hot
love
topic.
that though. So it's so
mean-
relatable. I think that's one of the major things that the fact that we were relatable in that way that kept the show on the air for so long, that we weren't just a fantasy element of murder and intrigue and the parents all sleeping with each other and everything. I mean, that didn't happen on our show until at least like season 5.
When did Barbara start rolling around with Chef? I remember that being
Antoine.
Antoine. Oh my God.
No, there's so many things that I never noticed about the show until we just rewatched it.
Yeah.
Like the grooming.
The grooming.
The grooming between Paul and James.
They have the same hair.
Yep.
And then Chad and Chef, like the
Same hair.
Yeah.
Same haircut. And guys, when
clothes.
we
It's smart.
when
It's
we
good.
refer to Chef, we're talking about Craig Sheffer, who played Uncle Keith. And yeah, like we just watched the scene where they're in Keith's body shop, and Keith and Lucas have the same hair, and we just never knew.
Never
I
noticed.
never clocked it.
Never clocked.
Speaking of hair, Joy and I would look like sisters if we were groomed.
Yeah,
the
because when
same.
I showed up in Wilmington, I had curly blonde hair, and they took one look at me. They're like, "Yeah, that's not gonna work."
No.
So,
How quickly did they make that decision?
it was like within. I'm sure they had made the decision probably before I showed up. I mean, when I tested, I was blonde, And then they just probably figured out they'd just dye it as soon as I got there, which they did.
Yeah.
But
Did they tell you that though?
I had a feeling with. I mean, I'd seen the pilot. I knew they wouldn't let us look exactly alike, and I was game for it. In fact, actually, I was super excited about playing this character, and I thought like maybe I'll get bobby pins and stick them in my hair so that my ears will stick out. So I'll look like. I just wanted to add this element of like awkwardness to her. I thank God I didn't do that because can you imagine like
6 years, 9 years?
Yeah, 9 years of bobby pins.
The
sticking
ear
into
tuck
my-
episode would have had to happen.
You're like, guys, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
You're like, I have a headache all the time.
Yeah, but the hair was a deal because I didn't straighten it a lot, and back then there were less
Tools.
tools and advances in knowing how to handle curly hair and make it straight in the South in the humidity, and so I ended up with this very flat top, wide bottomed hair that was kind of a strange color, but. It's all right, you know.
But your hair, I feel like, I mean, we'll see as the episodes go on. I feel like you had like 3 different hair colors season 1 because they kept dyeing it and dyeing it and dyeing it.
Yeah.
And it was like an evolution of hair.
And I was trying to like, it was also weird, like, because we didn't all want to look alike. And I didn't want to like compete with you because you were the blonde one, but I also like was naturally blonde. And so it looked good on my skin tone to lean lighter in that way. And then then there was a time when we you went really platinum and then I went blonde.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wish I had just stayed the same color, honestly. Like
You
it
were
was
red
just-
for a
I
minute
was
too,
red.
right?
Yeah. it
Oh
was all
God, I
over.
dyed my hair every color in the book.
You were
over
super
the
black
years.
at one point too, like
Yeah.
dark black hair.
Well, I had dyed my hair black in the summer between seasons 2 and 3.
Oh, because you
for
were
a
doing the horror movie. Yeah.
I dyed my
Yeah.
hair black and I cut bangs, and I remember even lightening it when I came back. It was so much darker than it had been, and our boss, who shall not be named, lost his marbles that I'd cut bangs because he was like, all the cheerleaders who never paid me the time of day in high school all had bangs and they were bitches. And it was
Bangs equals bitches.
Bangs equals bitches. But it was that funny moment because we were just talking watching the pilot about how our hair was kind of this battle.
Well, but not to bring back Felicity, but
It was
that's
the Felicity
because of that.
It was- when she cut off all her hair, they went crazy.
Kids at
And
home
put
might
a
not
quad-
know about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Okay,
Tell that
there's
story.
there's a great show called Felicity. If you haven't gone back and watched it, you really should.
Carrie Russell is an icon.
Just a dynamite actress. But she had this big, beautiful, long, curly blonde hair, blondish brown hair. And she went away one season and cut it off. And, Michelle Williams did the same thing actually in Dawson.
Yeah.
She just chopped it all off. But her hair wasn't its own image.
Character.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Carrie's hair was like, it was an image that was instantly recognizable. Nobody else on TV had hair like this. So when she chopped it all off without letting anybody know, everybody kind of went crazy. And the show's ratings actually dropped and they connected it to her hair being cut
Which
off.
is ridiculous.
I
It
think
was
it's
like,
absurd.
it was like in his 5th season.
Yeah. But, for whatever reason, the ratings dropped and it happened to be the same time.
Heaven forbid the writers admit they'd gotten lazy. They'll just blame the actress and her hair.
That's right. So then from that point forward, everybody was trying to do recon and put into every actress's. There was like a hair clause in the contracts or something, right? Like
I
you
feel
can't
like
do
there's a
something
whole
to your
vice
hair.
president at a network that's just in charge of actresses' hair. Like the boys can do whatever the hell they want to do.
But it was a massive battle about hair every
Yeah.
episode.
And for
bangs,
us-
curls, flyaways.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You can't do
and
anything.
it had to be down, sexy, down.
approvals. Take the Polaroid, send it off to LA, make sure they approve this hairstyle.
Yeah,
all
it
of
was so crazy. And Hilarie, you pointed out so wisely that, watching the pilot, you'd been fighting to get ponytails for the girls at cheer practice.
So now looking back at it, the stuff that I was fighting about right out of the gates, like the audacity of a 20-year-old kid to be like, hi, you're wrong. I feel like I can go onto a set today and assert myself, but the idea that I was doing that as a child, I'm mortified.
And about hair. Like nobody had taught us how to pick and choose our battles. Like which ones do you fight for?
But also the irony is that at 20, you had been a cheerleader 2 years before. So you were like,
Exactly.
no, cheerleaders are athletes.
When I didn't
They're
want
doing
like
stunts.
cheerleaders to make fun of us. Like
Yeah.
God forbid the real
Heaven
cheerleaders
forbid.
out there be
That's
like,
right.
oh, these fake TV cheerleaders. So I was adamant that like there was accuracy.
Okay, well, this is a good segue because getting away from hair, because we can only talk about that for so long.
I don't know.
But like speaking of hair and being a cheerleader, there Lucas asks Peyton a great question in the pilot. He says, "Why are you a cheerleader? You're the least cheery person I know." And I did always kind of wonder why Peyton was a cheerleader.
I think that's why we needed Brooke. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I remember having like an internal struggle my real senior year in high school where I didn't like what cheerleading stood for. Like, I didn't like being in the passive role of cheering on someone else. But all my best friends did it. You know, and it was like a way for us to hang out after school, go on trips together. You know, it was a thing that connected us, and I could make fun of it because I was one of them. You can't make fun of a cheerleader when you're not a cheerleader and not sound like a total asshole. I mean, I guess other people do, but you should know you're an asshole. So it made a lot of sense for me for Brooke to be introduced because she was the anchor for Peyton. It was like, if my mom's dead and I'm a nightmare and the one person in my life I can rely on does this dumb thing, I guess I'll do this dumb thing too.
Yeah.
But when we shot the pilot, you weren't there yet.
Yeah.
And so I had to go over to a high school in Wilmington, and, you know, I'm like a 20-year-old VJ, you know, and it's like all these real 15 and 16-year-olds, and they're like, okay, so just hang out with these girls after school. And so part of me felt like a predator. I was like, what am I doing hanging out with these children, you know? But like in the pilot, that was a real high school cheerleading squad that was local to the area. I'd love to know what those girls are doing now. Like how weird it must be for them to see their childhood experience like played out on TV. Like Bevan grew up in Wilmington.
Yeah.
She kind of had a tap on it, but
Was that anyone's childhood experience though? Like what we just saw, is that, I mean, obviously we know it's heightened for television, but I'm trying to imagine in my high school that something like that actually.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like the experience. I don't think. I mean, who knows? We did say during the viewing that we were like, God, we all thought it was so scandalous that there was this idea that this guy would have knocked up 2 women and would have 2 kids, and now we're like, people have whole other families. We didn't know.
Now that I know grown-ups, I'm like, grown-ups are so messy.
Grown-ups are so messy. But it's funny because at the time we were like, this is so crazy. But I also think there is that real element of when you are in high school, it is your whole world. Yeah. And the stakes feel so high. The stakes are so high because that's the entire scope of your universe and your experience. So I almost feel like the stakes of the rivalry and who gets to play on the sports team, they felt high. They were dramatized because really, you know, when you're young, you're just like, I want to fit in and I want to belong and I want my family to be okay. And I don't know, it's pretty real for a lot of people.
Those stakes still felt high for us at 20 being on that set.
Oh my
because
God.
we're not that far out of high school. So I mean, those hormones and those emotions and the feeling of everything being really big. I mean, you were talking about buying your first car, you know.
Well, and I had gone to a really big sports high school. Like Parkview High School, went to states in football, and we were like machines. And so we went to states and cheered and had those big, huge moments. So for me, I felt like I knew it better than the adults who were writing about it. Cause I was like, guys, I was literally just here, you know, like I know what this looks like. And I think that's why I was so like bossy about it. But nobody was like that good looking. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like for me, the hard part was the beauty element of it, because I look back at pictures of real high school, and we should definitely post our real high school pictures.
Oh yeah.
Because it wasn't cute.
No.
Like at
The
all.
eyebrows. Those 90s eyebrows.
Guys,
eyebrows.
super crunchy hair, you know?
The
Like,
year I thought I could have a bob and learned that that's a real bad haircut on me. My junior year in high school.
You're cute.
No, junior year in high school. It's a picture so bad. I'll show the 2 of you. I don't know if I'd
Was it
post
like split down the middle? Yeah.
and like chunky highlights.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Woo! And
Like
my eyebrows
Robin.
were overplucked.
Did you like twist it back with the butterfly
Oh, I
clips?
did that in middle school for sure. Good God.
No, dude.
Yeah.
It all comes back to hair, man.
I know. There's
But-
such identity in it.
It was one of the few things that we felt like we could control as the girls, because we couldn't control what we said. We couldn't control like what we were wearing
Yeah, not much.
necessarily.
Or what our characters had to do.
Well.
I mean, that moment for you in the pilot.
Okay, so yeah, when we were watching the pilot, there's a scene where Peyton comes out of the bathroom after Nathan and is like, "Hi, Mr. Scott." And so when I first got the job, it was called Ravens. We've talked about this. And the arc throughout everything was narrated by Barry Corbin, by Whitey. And he was describing everything that happened in the town to his dead wife, Camilla. And that was...
who we didn't find out was dead until the end of the pilot.
Oh, you're totally right.
That's right.
But that was the tone. It was
Yeah.
like a really sweet, like small town, aw shucks kind of show. But they were trying to capitalize on the popularity of 8 Mile. And they wanted it to be like an all shucks town, but with this 8 Mile underbelly of the kid from the wrong side of the tracks. Never in any of that was there a sexy element. Right. And so I felt totally safe just being like, okay, yeah, I'll go and be the cranky girl. So then when the OC got popular and we had to turn up the sexy, it was like a bait and switch.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, well, do we get a say? Like, do we get to have an opinion about it? And we didn't. We just had to turn up the sexy, which, like, thankfully, we're all really sexy. In our flat shoes and our, like, corduroy skirts.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was hard. That was hard for us as young women who were all like, we were all relatively like
prudish.
Demure in our, in our activity. And so when we were to get into that environment and have to play this, like, I don't know, older male
Wildcat.
idea of what a young teenage high school girl could be in a dream world, or maybe was,
Or
maybe
a fantasy.
Yeah, I mean,
Yikes.
I don't know how much of that was how much of it was experience of girls that maybe they knew that, we just weren't like, or I don't know.
I didn't know
Anybody who's having sex in high school.
Oh, I did.
Did you?
Oh, yeah.
I did. But like, I also think it for the people who were,
everybody
it
was
was
talking
really
about it.
late and it was a big deal.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody
And,
was like, oh my God, they have
No one was
sex.
casual about
No,
it.
I mean, my God, my very first boyfriend who I dated until I was a senior in high school was my best friend from summer camp since the age of 9.
Oh,
Like my sweet, like high school sweetheart who for years I was like, I'm still not ready. Was like, it's okay. Like just such
be
a
friends
gentleman,
forever.
like a true gentleman.
Yeah.
And it's funny to think like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I dated 3 people by the time we got on our show.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what? None.
Yeah.
none of
You
us
would
knew
never
anything-
casually come out of the shower in front of their
out
parents.
of the shower
my
in front of your boyfriend's father.
gosh.
Like, how dare you be in the shower at your boyfriend's house in
No.
the first place?
No, I shower with my clothes on, in fact.
I also just love, I gotta tell the listeners, because it's a fun one to watch, when you come out of said scene where Paul is really just ripping into James, because he has, by the way, the one episode where James has a nipple ring that some makeup artist had to glue onto his chest, by the way, gross. Not
like
the
a
piercings are gross, just like, ew, having a fake one glued on is gross. And no one liked it, and so they never referred to it again. But you walk out of the bathroom and you wouldn't even look at the camera.
No, they're like, can you cheat out? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Like, I'm mortified right now. I'm hoping this gets cut.
Yeah, I'm mortified by this fake situation, so I'm not going to play it.
Like, I still, as a married woman, couldn't do that. Just like traipse by in my towel in front of my father-in-law. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Ew,
No, so
gross.
blasé.
No, I would never.
yeah, ew, sick, ew.
In front of you guys, but like in-laws? Oh my God, it makes me
No,
feel so small and
father-in-law?
hot
Oh,
with
no.
shame.
Meanwhile, also like looking back on it, Paul was also a viable option. Like, Paul's the same age as my husband. And so
Heyo.
like the whole element of like traipsing around like semi-dressed was just so loaded and weird. And I remember that feeling of, I was never allowed to watch these shows growing up. And here I am, like right smack dab in the middle of it. And this one's potentially worse than what I wasn't allowed to watch.
And you're the
as a kid.
heroine too. You're the one that we're watching and like,
Well, I don't know. I
learning
was
from.
told pretty
and-
much off the bat. The second the first episode aired and the reaction to Peyton was so bad, Because it really was. The reaction to her was so
Wait,
negative.
really?
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, they came
God,
to
I
me and
always
they're like,
loved her.
we're gonna have to take you dark, right? And then you'll have a moral arc where you know, like come back around and people will understand why you're such an asshole. But
That's kind of great though. Like as an actor, that's
like that we understand that now. But back then,
yeah.
you know, you're like 20 and you're just like, please
People
like
hate me.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like the chat boards. Remember the chat boards?
Yes.
Just pages
was
and
it.
pages of
It's a hideous place.
judgment.
It's so people are so cruel.
Yeah.
And the irony that we clearly are not in control. I mean, we did over the years have to go so hard in the paint for our characters.
Yeah.
And when we would win a battle, it was really like winning a war. And there would be people online being like, can't believe you did that. It's like, well, I didn't want to. Mr. Jersey 0796. You, man. Like, God, do you think I chose this?
I didn't choose this for me.
I did not choose this choice.
And if they'd known how bad it was supposed to be
Right.
and what we like reeled it back
Yeah.
in to become.
Yeah.
And so like that, the new normal that this show created of like parents not being around, of like casual sexuality and stuff.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm really happy we've been so open about with
too.
conventions and things like that. Cause I never wanted teenage girls to feel like they were behind the 8 ball or that they were like missing out on something. Cause I'm like, oh, do you want to see pictures of 11th grade for real? Cause
Yeah.
it's
wasn't
like a
that.
lot of acne.
We fought for that a
and-
lot because we knew that we were speaking to a young audience, and I was constantly having conversations about like young girls look up to me and up to this character, you know, me as this character, and I'm nervous about A, B, or C because I don't want them to think that that's like
Normal.
normal or okay, or that they should be treated that way, or that they should, you know, and you know, the conversation between as an actor portraying a character and you want to show that the character has an arc, so your character has to have flaws and they've got to learn things and go through things. So yes, you don't want to be perfect all the time, but you also, there was this sort of moral responsibility that we felt, and it was tough. That was really tough to navigate as a young woman.
And I remember also the excitement of feeling our first sense of permission to be a little wild.
I mean,
Because like you and I,
Yeah.
Hilarie and I,
We
our
turned
birthdays are a
21.
week apart.
Yeah.
We
That's
turned
right.
21 and we started working a week later filming. We were already in Wilmington.
it was really fun.
But I remember that first night we went to Level 5, which was this cool bar on top of a theater, and we ordered drinks and looked at each other like we had just gotten away with murder. They were like, "Can we see your IDs?" And we were like, "Yup." And even we were like, "Are they going to get rejected? Are they going to know they're real?"
Yeah.
And then they gave us cocktails, and we looked at each other like, "Oh my God, it worked!
Yeah.
It worked!"
It was magic. And like we had money to buy our own drinks. It was crazy. Yeah, it was. I mean, I wish we'd had like phones with cameras at the time because
We'd
of the
have
stuff,
so many memories on our
also
phone.
like a lot of blackmail. You know what I mean? Looking back at the show now, just watching it objectively, Joy, you were really good to point out like the structure of it is so good.
It's
and there
so
was
good.
nothing else like it on TV at the time. The parallels between what each boy is going through.
Yeah, the way they cut back and forth on the courts, with the cars and the buses, the connection between the 2 older brothers, the 2 younger brothers, how that whole dynamic.
Yeah.
That was really strong.
Yeah.
There was a lot of wildlife in this episode. Joy got attacked by pigeons.
That's right. There was an alligator in some scene.
It was
right?
in my scene. What was your pigeon experience?
Oh, we had some guy out there with the pigeons trained. So that was okay. For those of you who don't know, that was called a steady shot. It was a steady cam shot. It was a oneer is what we call it because there's no coverage, which means the camera's not popping in on Chad's face and then my face to get each of our lines. It's just one camera setup, and we do the scene, and we walk through and say our dialogue, and when it's over, we're done.
And by the way, baller for the Steadicam operator, because what that means is that there's a guy wearing a camera strap to his chest, walking backwards, looking in a monitor at you and Chad in a 2-shot that never cuts, never moves, has to be perfectly timed. And this man has to trust the guy who's dragging him by the vest enough to just look at the two of you and walk backwards blindly. It's so hard. It's so hard.
And it's got to be perfect. If one person, if somebody coughs or sneezes and doesn't make it work in the scene, you got to start all over again. So
or if the pigeons
And so we're doing this oneer on the Steadicam, and we had the guy with the pigeons, and there was like always a thing. We could never get it to work, and it was so frustrating. I don't know what, they would fly in the wrong direction, or like he'd open the cage and they'd just walk out. Like there was never anything right. So finally it worked, and then we continued on with the scene. But I had that was my pigeon wildlife experience. What was yours?
I had the gator. Was it my first day? It was either my first or second day, but it was my first real day of like acting. I may have done some like extra work in a different scene, but my first real day of acting was that roadside scene where my car is broken down and it's just Chad and I. And Chad had been on Gilmore Girls. He'd been on Dawson's. He'd done like a Haley Duff movie or something, or like he'd done so much work. And so our director was a very big time director, Brian Gordon. And I knew he'd done some like HBO stuff, and he was a very big deal. And I had not done a chemistry read with anyone. I hadn't tested. I had done this, one little part on Dawson's Creek. I had done, my scene study classes in New York for the last 2 years, but mostly it was theater where you've got a really big space to move around and rehearsal time.
Yeah.
So Chad and I get called to set, and I knew my lines coming and going, right? We go down there. They put us on these marks, which are like little, pieces of tape in the shape of a cross. And they're like, hit this, don't you dare look at it because the camera's pointed at you. You just have to feel it. And I'm like,
unless it's a wide shot where there's like a little dot the size of half your fingernail.
Yeah, they rip the tape T off and they're like, see this little dot we left you? And you're like, in the grass? The green dot in the grass? No.
It's smaller than my pinky nail. So everyone's like just like telling me all these things, and no one realized I didn't know the business at all, right? I didn't know how to hit a mark. I didn't know how to find my light. I didn't know any of this. And while we're in the midst of the very first rehearsal, a gator is swimming up to Chad and I, and no one is clocking it. Like no one's saying a word.
In the marsh.
My gosh.
In the marsh right there in the water. And I'm like, hey, anybody? Nobody? Anybody? And I was distracted, right? Like warranted. So we end rehearsal. I go to my trailer. I knew it was bad. Like I knew it was a bad rehearsal because the lingo they were using, I kept having to ask like, what are you talking about? Pulling focus? Like, what does that even mean? I had no idea. The director comes to my trailer. Bang, 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 bang. And I was like, yeah? He's like, I need to talk to you.
Oh.
You didn't know your lines. Yes, I fucking did know my lines. I knew my lines, but there was like a lot going on.
You're like, there's an alligator, sir.
Don't you ever waste my time or the crew's time again. And I was like, I cried, and then I had to pull it together. And like, it was just like the worst, scariest day. But I didn't know my lines again. Like ever, like my whole career. It was a great note to get your very first day.
Yeah. Even though you didn't deserve it.
For the record, I knew my lines.
I just had an alligator coming at me.
But the interesting thing is that the requirement is you have to be unflappable.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah.
And that's a hard skill to learn.
It was
your
good
first
note, too.
day.
Yeah.
No one, but the thing is, when you go onto a job, no one realizes it's your first day because it's not their first day.
Right.
They've been doing this for years. Like you're just welcome to the circus, kid. And so it definitely set the tone for me of crew first. Always crew first. Be a team player. Don't ever waste anyone's time.
Yeah.
I think that probably plagued me a little bit the whole course of shooting because I was then I tried to overcompensate. So I'd be like, I'll advocate for every department, like I'll fight your battles for you because I'm on your team, remember? But it all came down to that freaking gator.
Wow.
I mean, people die all the time in Wilmington getting eaten by gators.
In Wilmington, I didn't know that happened all the time.
Yeah, like Greenfield Lake.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Whoa. I never walked my dog down there.
Yeah, no, there were some bad stories about like, I remember maybe this has been created in my brain, but I'm 99% sure that when we lived there was a story about somebody walking their dog around Greenfield Lake and the dog got snatched.
Oh, yeah.
But the person's arm was in the leash.
No.
And so when the dog was getting rolled by the gator, the person walking it was also drowned. And I was like, well, I'm never going there. Ever. I'm never going.
This is the mythology that's so fun about shooting in a small town. Because, like, you don't know.
Did it happen? I don't know, but I heard it did.
Oh, my God.
It was also just such a crazy thing because I remember, you guys obviously shot the pilot. You do pilots in the spring, guys. So, like, March, usually.
Yeah.
And so it's chilly still in Wilmington in March. But then when we got there to start shooting properly, and Joy, when you had to shoot all your pilot scenes, do all those reshoots, it was July. It's 100 degrees. It's 100% humidity. But you're shooting a show that's going to be airing on TV in September.
Oh,
so you're
sweaters.
wearing cashmere sweaters and leather jackets. And they're like, could you stop sweating? One of the camera guys. And you're like, I wish I could help you. I'm so sorry.
No, and another thing to note is that our show was supposed to be a mid-season replacement.
Yeah, January.
That's right.
And that's why we were all dressed for winter because we were supposed to come on the air in January.
Yep.
And so we were filming in July. We had a 6-month lead and another show got canned. And so they put us on the air away in September. But that meant that we were filming an episode and then it would air like 2 or 3 weeks later.
It was fast, yeah.
So there was no way to adjust for like reaction, to like crowd reaction and stuff like that. It was so, I just remember being so nervous about Peyton because I was like, everybody hates her. Everybody hates her. I'm on set reading about how everyone hates her. And like, we're still in the midst of like being a big jerk,
Oh, man.
So it was, that was scary. There was no promotion for the show.
It was all word of mouth. And that was a crazy
cool.
thing. Yeah, because every
Street
week.
cred.
Yeah.
Street cred, man. Every week the viewership jumped in ways that we all were like, what's happening? And when we first, because obviously you ushered us in, Hill, to the whole world of MTV. And I will never forget when we went and did that first TRL and the people at MTV were like, last time we had a crowd this big was for Eminem.
Yeah.
And we were like, Times Square was... I've never seen a crowd like it. And we were like, this is for us.
Yeah, I remember being really confused.
I was like having a panic. I was sweating. I was
Guys,
like,
I
what
was
does it mean?
convinced that
think
like
it was for
Warner
us.
Brothers paid people to do it. And now as an adult, I'm like, well, no, then every movie would have done that. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't have those crowds for anybody else. It was...
I didn't know that they were for us. I just thought Times Square was packed. And we pulled up and I got out and I was like, man, this is crazy. What is going on? And I got out and I saw somebody in the immediate crowd surrounding us holding up a poster that was Nathan and Haley. And I just was like, what?
This Haley?
Wait, what? I mean, they were holding up posters for all of us in all different ways, but that was just the one that my eye saw that was like, oh my God, wait, these people are here for us?
Yeah.
Especially because we were just in this little town. Like, oh man, we were laughing so hard, you guys watching the pilot, just thinking about all the shenanigans of our lives there. And like one of the things that's so funny about Wilmington, it's a college town and it's a retirement town.
Yeah.
So like it was us, 21, and then it was a bunch of 19-year-old kids at UNCW. And
I
then
wasn't going to kiss those.
Nope. And then it was a bunch of people's like dads and grandpas on the golf course.
I might have kissed those.
I wasn't going to kiss those either. And so it was kind of just us. Like all we had was each other, literally for better or worse. And oh man, we just had no perspective on anything outside of our little bubble in this little place. And then we got to New York and there were thousands of people in the streets outside of a building where we were going to do press. And we were like, what is this? It was like being in the Twilight Zone. It was so crazy.
I remember other people talking about like, oh, your life's about to change. And I'm like, well, I've been on TV since I graduated high school. Like, what are you talking about? You know?
Yeah.
I do live TV.
Yeah.
You know, I get the reaction right away. So to do something where the reaction was delayed was weird. Because then it really was so much bigger. And I had a boyfriend, a fiance at the time, who came to visit and was like riding a skateboard around our base camp.
Oh my God, that's right.
And I remember our bosses going, he won't last long.
Oh, yeah.
Like they knew our life was about to change enough that I would just like cast off the old skin and turn into something different.
I never felt like, I mean, did you guys feel like your lives did change all of a sudden? Because like I said, we were in Wellington.
Only in that I was making decisions 100% on my own for the first time, like where I wanted to live.
Yeah.
You know, I went shopping for a car with Brian Greenberg in those first couple episodes. And I remember I was looking at like a Mountaineer. Do they even make Mountaineers anymore?
What's a Mountaineer?
It's kind of like a Jeep, right?
I don't know.
Like a Range Rover, not a Range Rover. Whatchamacallit? Yeah, like a Jeepy kind of.
It's like a sport
Yeah,
utility
it's like
vehicle.
a sport SUV.
Not like a Subaru?
Girl, I don't
No.
know.
I think a Mountaineer is like
I
a.
think I was just excited.
Look,
to
there it
spend
goes. Yeah,
Oh, there it is.
Like a Ford,
Okay.
like a Ford Escape or
Got it,
whatever.
got it.
those
Like
are,
an
yeah.
Explorer.
Explorer.
I was
that's
just
what I meant,
pumped to like hang out with Greenberg because he was so cool, you
He
know.
was
And so
really
we
cool.
went like shopping for cars, and then I was too scared to actually spend money on a car from a car lot because I wasn't convinced.
It's scary to spend money
And
when
so
you're making it.
I bought
that.
like a $1,500 1986 Mercedes that like had the crank windows, you know, and like
turbo
no
diesel.
AC, and that's what we would like drive into work.
Yeah.
And it felt extravagant at the time.
all of us trying to figure out who we wanted to be. I mean, that's a big deal at that age. Like, you know, we all had different personalities, but we were looking up to other public figures at the time and to the things that we saw in the magazines and other
Who
women
did
that we
you
saw
wanna be?
around us. I didn't know. I mean, I there were things I admired about you. There were things I admired about you. And I remember like, okay, let me copy that and see if that feels right in my skin. No, that doesn't feel right.
It was like
Let me-
trying on a sweater.
Yes, and I'd look at a magazine and be like, let me try that on and see. And I think every teenage girl can relate to that. We're all trying on different suits to see which one
Yeah.
fits us.
I felt so confused too, because to your point, everyone around us kept telling us our lives were changing, but I just felt like I had no idea what that meant. And I think part of it for me, you know, I grew up my whole life. I went to an all-girls school with 50 girls in my graduating class.
God.
I wore uniforms. Like I didn't have any of the experiences we were portraying.
Oh, that's so weird.
And I had
Soph.
never
I
been
never thought about that.
Oh, I never been in a class with boys. My high school sweetheart was my best friend from camp since I was 9. I'd never been lied to. I'd never had anyone try to sell me anything. I went to college and I wanted to have the opposite experience. So I went to USC. I thought sororities were lame, but my best friends were joining one. So I did just like you as a cheerleader. But I was the philanthropy chair of my sorority because I can't help but be a nerd.
I like clubs.
And I dated a boy all through college who was a computer programmer. Like we were just so cute. I had like these dreams of making the kinds of movies I loved. And I remembered like, you know, watching My So-Called Life and loving Claire Danes and thinking she was so talented and she went on to do movies I respected. And I thought maybe someday that could happen. And then suddenly we were on TV